Hi, this is Kristen Clark, and I'm here with Bobby Hood today. Here's another installment of College Planning Untangled, where we help families simplify the college planning process. Bobby, how are you today?
I'm just great. Excited to be talking about this. All my seniors are in the middle of this process, and just very excited about getting done with the college thing. But there's still stuff to do,
I
right?
know, and as we talked about in part one, during this time, this spring semester, there is a lot to do to get done with college
hmm
planning. So, but it's the exciting part too, right? It's where we're making the big decisions and finalizing, crossing T's, dotting I's, and
hmm
figuring out where we want to go. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Now I know in the last part that we talked about looking at your career path ideas and determining a
hmm
major, figuring out what types of uh, fraternities and sororities there are, and other extracurricular activities,
hmm
um, planning a visit to the college that you're accepting at, letting the school know, the schools that you're not attending know,
hmm
and then the making sure to just keep an eye on that email box to make sure that we know when admissions is talking to us and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And now for the second half, we've got more of the tactical things that really need to happen for this semester.
hmm
So, and the first one is the big one, and the exciting one is choosing that new college.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you may have multiple acceptances, you may have only one, right? Making the decision easier. But yeah, you might have different options. And that's what, I mean, I think we touched on it very briefly last week, but you'll, it's not just, oh, I got accepted to three. I'm just going to pick the one that's my favorite. There's financial aid packages to look at and look at what the offer is. And you may need to even try a little negotiating or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other part is making sure that they have that major that you need and want and, following that
Absolutely.
career path. So, yeah, there are a lot of decisions that are going to go into picking this college.
Mhm.
You know, it, we do have all of those big pieces, right? And I think the financial aid
Mhm.
package and the money part, is not something that we want to forget about, that we really want to
Yeah,
take notice of that. And the other part is most people at this point should know about those assured scholarships that they're going to be
sure.
offered, right? If they have the right SAT, ACT scores, all of that good stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is even possible, like if they have that assured scholarship, you might even be, like if you need one more point on the ACT or 10 more points on the SAT, you might be taking the, February ACT, because you may be accepted, but it could still change the financial aid decision if they have an assured scholarship or something like that. So that's
Yeah.
possible. Hopefully that's something you're all done with and you've got the financial aid package you want and you're happy, and you're happy and ready to move forward.
But I think to your point is they still have time to gun for the extra merit scholarships and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And May 1st is kind of the date that most colleges are saying
hmm
that you have to make a decision by. So,
Right.
we've got a little bit of time to finalize those decisions, but that's going to come fast. Senior
Oh,
year is
absolutely.
fast.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know for the students, sometimes it doesn't feel like it goes fast because they're just so ready to get out and get
Yeah.
get moving, but it'll swing around pretty quickly for them. So,
Yeah. And it's interesting too. Like I haven't asked this question of my students, but I know that like back when I went to college, you knew if you got a small envelope, then that was usually a rejection letter from a college. But if you got accepted, generally you got a gigantic large envelope that was stuffed with things to tell you about all the things to do. But I think now some colleges are doing even more creative things and sending you, different kinds of things, or you might even get things via email. So, you've got to, this is that time when you got to be paying attention to all the ways people can communicate with you.
yeah, and I love that some of these colleges are getting really creative. I saw, one of them that had a yard sign, like
hmm
a those inexpensive, but they're,
Yeah.
it's big, that you get to put
Right.
that out in your yard and get excited about this. And I can
Yeah.
definitely tell you on Facebook, over the last couple months, I've been seeing a ton of kids that are showing their letters and showing they got accepted. And so that it's
Yeah.
always fun to watch.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then we have taking your AP exams and finishing enrollment papers.
Yeah, so AP exams, a lot of colleges, if you get a 4 or a 5 on several of the AP exams, you will come into college with actual credit, or possibly you just, wouldn't have to take a class, right? So it might reduce the number of required core classes you have to take, right? So if you get like a 5 on a 4 or a 5 on the one of the AP calculus tests, right? That might either mean that you don't have to take any math, or that you actually get college credit for math. And so in my case, I think I had, from AP courses, I had 13 credit hours when I walked in the door to college. And that's a semester.
Yep, it's
That's a
meaningful for sure.
that is absolutely. And so I could have taken full loads every semester and graduated early, or I could do what I did, which is take lighter course loads and then be able to do better in classes, and have more time to focus on studying. So,
Yeah. And if nothing else, it gives you a little bit of cushion to,
oh man,
mess up a class here or there, or,
right?
decide that you do want
Yeah,
to change a major and, you
absolutely.
know,
If you do end up changing your major, having those hours in the bank. And so that's it. And so probably by this point, students have already taken other AP classes, but you can't just be like, oh, I'm in college, I'm just going to stop. You can't, you got to do all that stuff, because it can absolutely affect things.
you got to keep gunning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, the other part of that is, for the kiddos that took dual enrollment, that
Mhm.
obviously counts for them as well as having certain classes completed. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And then finish enrollment papers.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to fill out, right? Might still be in paper form, might be online. But that's where, like a lot of it seems like just, busy work to just fill out a bunch of stuff. But that's where, hidden among there, is probably the housing stuff. And a lot of times you may be surprised. I mean, you do not want to wait a single day. You need to fill out that housing stuff. Like, and I mean, like, I know with some schools, like at the University of Texas, like a parking pass is another one of those things that you have to get on a wait list. It sometimes takes a year or two before you get an actual campus parking pass. So some of these things you have to fill out and get in that system as soon as you can, or else you're going to find yourself having to live off campus, or having to live in, not the coolest dorm or whatever it is. So just don't like set those papers aside and then look at them in 2 months. Dive right into it.
And especially if you have somebody that you want to room with specifically, and maybe
Oh, for sure.
they did not get accepted as early as you did, and you're first on the list, you
Hmm.
need to make sure. And I know, I remember when my boys were going, I mean, we were on there the first day to
Hmm.
be able to try to get the rooms that we wanted. So it's definitely I think it's a little bit stressful, just getting the
Oh, it
room.
certainly is.
Yeah.
It certainly is, especially, with the another thing, the next thing that we want to talk about is, you know, going ahead and choosing and declaring a major. Like, you may not be able to actually enroll in classes yet for the fall, but you need to declare a major if you know one, and you can start looking at the classes that are offered and all that. And it's a good time to just start doing it, right? Like, because you've got to start figuring out, you know, what you're going to be taking, what your major is, all that. And it may be a surprise to students that that there's like a form you have to fill out to declare a major, right?
Right. And I'll tell you, most colleges these days, Bobby, require that you have declared a major.
Hmm.
So it is something that hopefully by now you've been thinking about and preparing for. And but if you haven't, it's time to get started. 2/3 of students report that this is the most stressful part of planning for college, is
Oh,
figuring out.
absolutely. Yeah, and I know some of my students have signed up for your class that's starting upcoming soon, right? This week, next week. So yeah, so that's the most important thing, right? Is, as we talked about last week, go ahead and start thinking about your strengths and your major, because you're going to have to declare that. And it's really good that colleges do that, because as we've talked about so many times, students without a major are the most likely to end up in that group that takes too many years or just doesn't even complete college. I think you say what, the 30% don't complete or something
30,
like that.
actually, it's this 30% don't go back to college after their freshman year.
Oh my gosh, right. And so if you haven't
Yeah.
declared a major, maybe you're not really, finding anything that interesting. You're finding yourself aimless. That's why you might not return. Absolutely. My gosh.
Yeah, it's important to have a plan. You got to know why you're there, and you have to understand the end goal, right?
Hmm.
All right. So then we've got sign up for college activities. And
This to me
we
is
did
the
hit
most
on this
fun.
last time, but it's important. Yeah.
Yeah. But so last time we're talking about like finding out what's available, right? So that's something you need to do early. And then the next thing, the tactical step of that is to actually go sign up, right? There are some organizations and activities that you need to go ahead and sign up for, right now. Particularly like things like continuing things that you did in high school, like things like bands and choirs and and things like that. Like they're you don't just walk in the door and say, "Hey, I want to do this," right? So
Absolutely. And even the recreational things,
absolutely.
we know it's important through many studies, research, all that good stuff, to be involved from day one. It's really going
Hmm.
to help you acclimate to the school. It's going to make you feel like you're part of something. And truthfully, it's even kind of setting you up for a life of well-being by
Oh,
having that
for
sense of
sure.
community. So I can't stress that one enough for parents. And by the way, you know how this is. As much fun as we all think college is, it's in the beginning, it's a little bit tough when you don't
Oh
know
yeah.
anybody possibly, or you're trying to establish new friend groups and all that stuff. And if you can sign up for this stuff before you get there and your confidence might be a tad bit lower than it is now, then you've already kind of set yourself up for meeting
Oh
new people.
yeah. No, I think this is yeah. There's something really really important here because I think we mentioned last week the fraternity and sorority system, and for those who go through that system, it can be an amazing, great experience. But if you don't look at organizations at all and you just walk in and say, well, I'm just going to go through Rush and I'm going to join a fraternity or sorority, it's very easy to just find yourself only being friends with those people and not knowing anyone else. Right. And so I think if you join one more organization, whether it's like hiking in the woods group or whatever it is, or a running group or a painting group, or whatever it is, uh, if you sign up for that first thing, they're probably going to have an activity like right near orientation. You're going to suddenly meet a diverse group of people, like that includes not just people who are freshmen, like you, but also will include some older students. It's really key to know some older students, right? And so, yeah, so I think that could be a great way to make sure that you, from the beginning, are meeting a diverse group of people throughout the campus because that's the most valuable thing you can do for yourself
Yes. And I think for parents too, really just encouraging that
in college.
and almost to a fault.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I know that I'll probably get parents in trouble for doing that, but it really is that important.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yep. And then the last thing that we have on this list is send your final high school transcript.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
Now I
it's
know
simple, but it's fun.
it's yes, and I know a lot of the high school counselors really help students with this, but we are to that point where adulting is fast approaching, and just making sure that kids take this reign, and really run with it and make sure it happens and not just relying on other people to make sure that it's going to happen is key. Let's start getting them to the point where they're taking responsibility for,
Mhm.
the next steps of their life.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a good step to like have the student do and right and go through that process because once you're in college, they're going to have to be submitting things all the time, right? And so,
Yep.
yep, it's just time to do that yourself. And yeah, and it is, and it just make but it is. I think part of the point of that step is remember that they that you have to send that you have to finish right. You can't just like it's a point about like everybody has senioritis their last semester, but your grades still matter, your grades still get sent to the college, everything still gets sent, right? You have to go ahead and take those AP exams if you signed up for the AP classes. You have to do all those things, right? You have to finish out that transcript strong and, and have that because, as sad as it is, that high school transcript can become relevant later on in a lot of different ways,
Well,
And so,
it can. And Carolyn's on with us today. We have seen
no, hi,
Carolyn on a
Carolyn.
lot of these shows, so that's
Yeah.
exciting. And then I am also going to put the college planning timeline that Bobby and I are referring to into the chat so that that you guys can get a copy of that. We've made it super simple
Mhm.
so that you feel like you're in control of the situation and you know what
Mhm.
comes next. So definitely download this. I'll make sure to get it in there. And yeah, and let's any questions that you have, guys, we are more than willing to answer any questions you have. Bobby's hugely free with his time, as am I. So don't sit there and wonder. Give us a call,
Oh,
email us,
absolutely.
whatever you,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, and I see Carolyn asked a question about
for sure.
the ACT. Yeah, so always happy to talk about that. The writing, it's called the writing test, but most people refer to it as the essay. It used to be that some colleges some small minority of colleges required the ACT writing test, and that a few also, or a bunch also, recommended it. But during COVID, almost every college in the United States dropped the essay requirement for both the SAT and the ACT. And there are now only 6 colleges, I believe, that actually require the SAT or ACT. And one of them is still West Point. So for those who are kind of wanting to apply to West Point, yeah, you need to take the ACT writing test. Another off the top of my head is uh, uh, the University of Mary Hardin Baylor. But other than that, pretty much nobody requires the ACT writing test. So I have been recommending to students, you really don't need it. And I would not spend that extra hour, 45 minutes on the test. There's no need for it. I've got a link here. Yep, here it is. So I will paste in that link. And so there's a link that is a very good piece of advice about that. And so, yeah, excellent. It's great to hear from you, Carolyn. I appreciate it. And yeah, so always, this is now the time of year when it is, when people are starting to think about tutoring again, so that they can get the SAT and ACT done by June. So yeah, if you have questions, go to my website, fill out that contact form, and I'll be happy to have a free consultation with you about the SAT and ACT and how to get started with tutoring.
Yeah, and Bobby, you saw the last question from Carolyn about putting you at a disadvantage.
No, absolutely. No, colleges will completely ignore the writing test except for like 2 or 3 schools. Uh, it, yeah, I would absolutely not be concerned about it. I don't think at all. I think, yeah, no, it absolutely doesn't. There is no comparison. They don't look more highly on students who take it. Just look and see in that list whether your college recommends or requires it. If not, there is absolutely no reason to take it. And I am advising all my students to not take it. It's just a stressful extra hour to spend that's doesn't have any benefit.
All right. Well,
All
and
right.
Bobby, thanks again for spending time with me today. And I will see you next week when we start talking about
Absolutely.
junior year.
Yeah, junior year. So that's perfect because yeah, we've got the seniors who talked about that because the seniors, they've got all that coming up, but the juniors, yeah, that's what we can start talking about next week. And I'm excited. Lots of things to discuss.
All right. Thanks, Bobby.
Okay, thanks. Bye bye.